Dear Chairman, Co-Chairman, and colleagues, first slide please. Our paper, Glycemic Control Mechanisms After Canine Islet Autografting, is a collaborative study from the Leiden and Groningen universities in the Netherlands. Next slide. Precise glycemic control is central to the concept of islet transplantation, but metabolic control has received limited attention. We therefore studied long-term metabolic control in dogs after islet autografting. In this model, there are no side effects from rejection or immunosuppressive drugs. Next slide. Metabolic studies were performed in 8 beagle dogs at 6 months after islet autotransplantation in the spleen and in 30 normal controls. Next slide. For graft preparation after pancreatectomy, as shown in the top panel. The islets were isolated by manual collagenase digestion and dextrin density gradient purification. Next, the islets were transplanted by retrograde venous infusion in the spleen, as shown at the bottom. The islet dose averaged 6.5 microliter islets per kilogram body weight, corresponding to 25% of the normal native islet mass in controls, as assessed by stereology. Purity of the grafts was around 70%. Next slide. For assessment, the conventional intravenous glucose tolerance test was included. The near maximum insulin secretory capacity was assessed by arginine injection during a 35 millimolar glucose clamp. After physiological stimulation by meals, we assessed the glucose, insulin, glucagon, and pancreatic polypeptide response. The insulin action was assessed during a 2-step hyperinsulinemic euglycemic clamp. We examined the enteroinsular axis after islet transplantation by infusion of the gut hormone GLP-1 during the 8.5 millimolar glucose clamp to mimic the postprandial glycemic conditions after transplantation. Next slide. I will now discuss the results. This slide shows a comparison of the intravenous and oral stimulation studies. Both the acute insulin response during intravenous glucose tolerance tests in the left top panel and the secondary insulin response during the 35 millimolar glucose clamp in the left bottom panel were reduced after transplantation, represented by closed symbols, to approximately 10% of normal. Likewise, the insulin secretory capacity measured at arginine stimulation during the hyperglycemic clamp was reduced to circa 25% of the normal value, which equals the reduction in islet mass. By contrast, postprandially, the insulin response, shown in the right top panel, increased to 140% of the normal value. Glucose, however, had also increased to around 8.5 millimolar. Next slide. Here we compare the post-transplant insulin responses to intravenous arginine stimulation during the 35 millimolar glucose clamp, represented by open symbols, versus meal stimulation, the closed symbols. The data show similar, close to maximum, stimulation of the grafted beta cells, indicating chronic maximum stimulation of the grafted beta cells after meals. Next slide. Since the insulin response to intravenous substrates was severely reduced, we hypothesized that hyperglycemic potentiation of the enteroinsular axis may explain the postprandial normo to hyperinsulinemia after islet transplantation. We therefore examined the insulinotropic effect of the gut hormone GLP-1. Low-dose GLP-1 infusion in the graft recipients indeed potentiated the insulin response during 8.5 millimolar glucose clamps, which mimicked the postprandial glycemia after islet transplantation. Next slide. These data confirm and extend our findings in perifusion studies that freshly isolated canine islets still respond to near-physiological stimulation with GLP-1 and GIP. Next slide. Apart from the reduced islet mass, other factors that may have contributed to the postprandial glucose intolerance were reduction of insulin sensitivity, postprandial hyperglucogonemia, and pancreatic polypeptide deficiency. Next slide. Correlation of the post-transplant data in each animal indicated the insulin secretory capacity to be a common determinant of both insulin sensitivity and the postprandial glucose excursion. With reduction of the secretory capacity, insulin action decreased and glucose excursions were larger. Next slide. We conclude that a postprandial hyperglycemia enhanced insulinotropic effect of GLP-1 and other gut hormones may account for the marked difference in the insulin response to the intravenous and oral challenges, and thus Limit postprandial glucose excursion after transplantation of a reduced islet mass. Apart from a reduced insulin secretory capacity, insulin resistance and excessive hepatic glucose production due perhaps to, first, a deranged insulin pulsatility, second, hyperglucodemia, and third, pancreatic polypeptide deficiency, may have contributed to the postprandial glucose intolerance. Next slide. Reduction of the insulin secretory capacity appears to be the main determinant of both postprandial hyperglycemia and insulin resistance. Transplantation of a larger islet mass should therefore allow prolonged near normal glycemic control. Thank you for your attention.